Welcome back again to Jost on a Boxing. I hope you're doing well. If you're familiar with this channel, you'll know that we like the little fellas, especially those over in Japan. And one of the best, one of the most exciting is KENSHIRO Taraji, who is the current WBA and WBC light flyweight champ. He's 32 years old, so his nickname is the Amazing Boy. That's what it translates as. But he's 32 now, so he's not a boy anymore. But he is a terrifically exciting fighter, really, really exciting. And he fights Carlos Canizales in defense of those titles on next Tuesday. So they like a bit of Tuesday boxing over in Japan, and that's fine. But of course, it does mean that those of us that work full time have to find time to watch it live if we're available. And if we're not, it's sometimes difficult to find a recording of it. But I thought I'd do a preview of this because I really do like Taraji. I think he's terrific to watch. So let's talk a little bit more about Taraji. I don't know whether you're familiar with him. If you're not, dig out some of his fights because they're very, very entertaining. And two of his last fights have been, I think, just terrific examples of how good this guy is. In September of last year, he beat Heki Budler of South Africa. Budler came in with 35 wins, 4 defeats. Himself had been a very, very good champion, very good fighter. He gave his all in that fight, but it wasn't enough, and Taraji stopped him in 9 rounds. And Budler, went out on his shield. I mean, I like Heki Budler. I think he's been a terrific servant to the sport. I don't know whether he's retired now. I think he might have done. But at the time, I think he was 34, 35, mid-30s, seen better days, but very, very good fighter. He'd been light flyweight champ, IBF, WBA, I think he held as well. It was just, and I think he was also a minimum weight champion as well. Real tiny guy, only about 5'3", I think. But Taraji just had too much for him, a little bit too much for him. And then prior to that, he beat Anthony Olasquegra, I think a guy's called. I'm never sure about the pronunciation. Olasquegra, I think that's how you pronounce it. He was undefeated in only 5 fights, and Taraji stopped him in 9. Prior to that, he had a right old tear-up with Hiroto Koyaguchi, who was undefeated, came in with 16 wins, no draws, no defeats. Again, these are for the WBA and WBC titles, and that was a terrific fight. And actually, Koyaguchi was fancied to beat Taraji because prior to that fight, Taraji split 2 fights with Masamichi Ibuki. The first one, he got knocked out, or he got stopped in 10 rounds. And that was a real shocker. That was for the WBC title. Didn't have the WBA at the time. But then he rematched Ibuki and beat him in 3 rounds. And it always irritates me when fighters do that, when there's a sort of 1-1 situation and they don't have a third, like a rubber match, like they used to in the old days. Because it's still 1-1. But the guy who wins the second fight, they always go, well, he got his revenge. Well, yeah, but it's still 1-1. So I really wanted to see a third fight with Ibuki. It didn't materialise. But that's no disrespect to Taraji. I mean, like I say, the fight against Koyaguchi was a brilliant fight. Yeah, go and watch it. Terrific. 7 rounds, he stopped him. Taraji is, I think when his career's over, he'll look back and he'll think, I did everything. I did all right. And he is, if he was at a higher weight, he's one of those guys who'd be a real star. People will be talking about him all the time. As for Carlos Canizales, 30 years old, comes from Venezuela, orthodox fighter. He's got 1 defeat on his record, which was an upset. And that was back in 2021 when he lost to Esteban Bermudez. Bermudez was, considered to be a decent fighter. That was over in Mexico. I think he had 13 wins, 3 defeats, and 2 draws. And the thing is, these Mexican kids, how many times have Mexican fighters, unknown Mexican fighters outside of Mexico, surprised us? And certainly Bermudez did that. It was really strange, actually, because that was back in 2021. And then what did Bermudez do? He went over and fought Hiroto Koyaguchi, who we just mentioned, and got stopped in 8 rounds. That was in 2022, and he hasn't fought since. So But these Mexican kids are tough. You just never know what you're getting with them. But anyway, getting back to Canizales, that's his only defeat. That was by stoppage. He's got 26 wins and he's got 19 KOs. He hits hard. But, the lighter guys, sometimes you don't get too many bangers. But this guy can hit. And I think Taraji needs to be very cautious in this fight because he's proved he can run out of gas and be stopped. It's been proven. You can argue, okay, that was Taraji's only defeat was a bad day at the office, if you want to call it that. Yabuki ain't a bad fighter. Don't get me wrong. I mean, he's a pretty decent fighter, but it was an upset. Taraji, going into this fight, I would say he needs to be very cautious with Canizales and that power. Canizales is unfancied and has got really nothing to lose in terms of stature because no one really cares. This is over in Japan, by the way. This is over in Osaka. So he's going to go over there. He's going to give his all. You would think he would think, okay, I'm going to sort of creep under the radar here and I've got something waiting for you. He's going to give absolutely everything and try and shock Taraji. And I've got a feeling Canizales might start early. But make no mistake about it, if you look at Canizales' fights, he's got some pretty decent stamina. He's got a pretty decent engine on him. And I've got a feeling he might start quick and try and wear out Taraji and then drag him into the deep waters because obviously this is a 12-rounder. And as they say, drown him. Now for Taraji, obviously that's going to be a gamble because Taraji himself hits hard, very skillful, can box, likes to have a row, but can box. He's only got 14 wins in 22, 14 KOs out of 22 wins, but he probably hits harder. Maybe not with one punch, but with the cumulative effect of his punches can wear guys out. And I think this is actually a pretty dangerous fight for Taraji because of the unknown commodity of Canizales. And I just wonder if Taraji might be taking Canizales a little bit lightly, especially in light of how well he did against Butler, Olasquega and Koyaguchi. He might be thinking, well, who's this guy Canizales? He's from Venezuela and, sometimes subconsciously, that can happen. And I think this is going to be a rough and tumble fight for Taraji. Now, there is a possibility if Canizales starts quick, he leaves himself open and Taraji can take him out early. But despite that stoppage defeat on his record, I think Canizales might spring a few surprises for Taraji. Having said that, I do think Taraji, even though he might have to navigate his way through a few choppy waters early on, I think he can. I think he can survive a few rough and tumble rounds, and gradually in the middle rounds get his sort of box fighting together and control Canizales. And I think that Taraji will eventually stop Canizales rounds 8, 9, 10, that sort of period of the fight. 8, 9, 10. Should we split the difference and say round 9? Why not? Yeah, so I think Canizales will give a good account of himself and will ask questions of Taraji. But I think Taraji now at 32 is mature enough to ride out the storm. Because a lot of times, if you're in the ring and you're put under pressure and there is a little bit of a crisis developing, you can unravel through lack of experience or through lack of maturity, But Taraji seems to be someone, especially in light of the fact that Butler fought very courageously, but wasn't really in the fight. But the Koyaguchi fight, I was very, very impressed with how Taraji handled Koyaguchi. Very impressed. He showed real maturity in that fight. I think he stops Canizales in about, like I say, let's say the 9th round for the sake of argument. But what do you think? Do you like the little guys? I hope you do, because if you don't, you're missing out on a lot of great boxing. I never, ever understand why people say, I don't like the little guys. I've never heard of them. You get the same sort of thing with women's boxing. I mean, to me, boxing's boxing. or you get it with the same with small hall boxing, where there's lower level guys. You get entertainment. If you love boxing, you get entertainment at every level. Doesn't matter where they're men, women, minimum weights, heavyweights. If you love boxing, you're going to go for it, aren't you? You're going to watch it. So try and find a link for this. I'm probably going to have to. I'm not going to be able to watch this live because I'm at work. But try and find a link. Have a look. If you know about Taraji and Canizales, let me know. You give me your opinion. Thank you, as always, for your time. Please subscribe to the channel if you're new. Hit that little subscribe button, and also give the like button an old right hook as well. Why not? All right. Thanks for your time. I'll catch you later. Bye for now.